Thanks for listening to Star Lores. If you like the show, please consider subscribing and giving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also help us make more great content by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com. We would also love to hear from you on social media. You can follow Star Lores on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Enjoy the show, and may the Force be with you.
You are listening to the Star Lores Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder?
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
In this episode, we will be reviewing the Dark Horse Comics graphic novel, The Dawn of the Jedi. Released from 2012 to 2014, it was among some of the last material written prior to the Disney acquisition of the Star Wars property. The books were written by John Ostrander, author of the popular Dark Horse comic run Star Wars Legacy, and illustrated by Star Wars veteran Jan Duursema. If you have not read the series and would like to, this is your obligatory spoiler alert. Nearly 26,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, before the Empire, and before the Galactic Republic, a monastic order of Force users called the Jedi occupied the mysterious planet of Tython in the deep core of the galaxy. The planet is home to a very ancient and unknown alien technology. Chief among this technology were the pyramid-shaped vessels called the Tho-Yor, which possess the ability to detect and travel to Force-sensitive species on other planets. Over the course of a millennia, the Tho-Yor traversed the galaxy, summoning species like the Wookiees, Twi'leks, Cathar, and Selkath, and brought them to the Force-rich Tython as a religious pilgrimage where they would eventually form the Order of the Jedi. The mystical homeworld of the Jedi was so intricately connected to the Force that any imbalance would throw the planet into violent force storms, which could spell death for the uninitiated. This reality is what formed the Jedi's guiding principle: balance. Because of the nature of the storms, it was of utmost importance that its inhabitants did not imbue themselves into the light side, nor fully immerse into the dark side. They strove for both discipline and passion, and walked a fine line between order and chaos. Tython had twin moons, the bright Ashla and the dark Bogan. These moons had become synonymous with the dark and light sides of the Force, respectively. When a Jedi veered too far to the dark side, he would be exiled to Bogan, so he could look upon Ashla and meditate on the light side. And vice versa, should he veer too far to the light side, he would be exiled to Ashla to gaze at and meditate on Bogan and the dark side.
The Jedi code goes as follows. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no fear, there is power. I am the heart of the Force. I am the revealing fire of light. I am the mystery of darkness. In balance with chaos and harmony, immortal in the Force.
Over the years, as the population grew, it had become more and more dangerous for the non-Force-wielding inhabitants of Tython to withstand the Force storms. As a result, the pre-hyperspace peoples ventured out and colonized the rest of the Tython star system. As time passed and cultures grew independent of one another, resentment against the Order also grew. This led to the Despot War, initiated by the Twi'lek dictator, Queen Hadia, who wanted to conquer the planet of Tython and overthrow the Jedi.
12 years after the conclusion of the Despot War, and several thousand light years away, the first civilization to achieve hyperspace had been wreaking havoc in a vicious galactic conquest, the Rakatan Infinite Empire. The Rakata, also referred to as the Builders in BioWare's Knights of the Old Republic video game, were an extremely Force-sensitive yet barbaric species. The uncivilized Rakata were discovered by an advanced spacefaring species named the Kwa, who had developed a Force-enabled technology called Infinity Gates, not unlike the technology in the cult science fiction Stargate, which gave them the ability to traverse the stars instantaneously. The Kwa were powerful in the ways of the Force and sought to bring enlightenment to other Force-sensitive species across the galaxy. In one of their evangelistic missions, they encountered the Rakata on the planet Rakata Prime, as it was referred to at the time, and instructed them on their philosophy of the Force. The Rakata were primitive relative to the Kwa. They had not yet even achieved spaceflight. They were, however, extremely adept Force users. The only problem with this was that culturally, the Rakata were very power-hungry and warlike, which gave them a strong penchant towards the dark side. This also probably explained why they had not achieved spaceflight, due to their society being hampered by a constant state of war. Eventually, despite the Kwa's best efforts to guide the Rakata to balance, the Rakata succumbed to the dark side and killed many of the peaceful Kwa, as well as appropriating their advanced technology. This led to a quantum leap for the Rakata, who in a very short period of time went from pre-spaceflight to galactic superpower with the development of hyperdrive technology.
The now titled Infinite Empire employed a strategy of targeting Force-rich worlds, much like their predecessors, the Kwa. However, instead of peacefully proselytizing these worlds, they opted to enslave their populations. By enslaving native peoples with Force abilities, they could use them in both their armies and economy, as well as ensure they never got powerful enough to rival the Empire. Generals in the Infinite Empire would often have powerful Force slaves called Force Hounds, who would serve as bodyguards, special ops, and a myriad of other tactical purposes. One such Force Hound was Zesh. Considered to be one of the most highly skilled Force Hounds in the Empire, the human male Zesh had an uncanny ability to sense and seek out worlds with high concentrations of Force-sensitive inhabitants, and it was Zesh who was responsible for first discovering Tython, bringing with him the wrath of the Rakatan warship, the Devourer, upon the Jedi homeworld. Through a series of events, the Devourer is stricken from the sky and brought crashing into Tython, and with the death of so many Force users upon the vessel, as well as the heavy presence of the dark side, the already unstable planet is thrown into violent force storms. Zesh was the only survivor of the crash. Eventually, Zesh joins the Jedi to pursue balance and abandon the dark side. He warns the Order of the impending attack on the Tython star system from the Infinite Empire, as he and his master's ship was only a scout mission. The real cavalry had not yet arrived. This new threat galvanized the Jedi and the other settled worlds in the star system as they joined forces to prepare for what would be called the Force War. A year after Zesh joined the Jedi, the Rakatan Infinite Empire arrived in the Tython star system, engaging in a full-scale assault with intentions to colonize and enslave its populations. The Tythonians were severely undermatched to the highly advanced technology and sheer numbers of the Rakata. Some of the Jedi, however, had discovered an ancient holocron on Tython belonging to the now extinct Qua. The holocron revealed the history and force secrets of the Qua to the Jedi, and it was also discovered that the mysterious Tho-Yor vessels were in fact constructed by the ancient species. Upon deciphering how to trigger the Tho-Yor's defense system, they emerge from Tython fully operational and completely wipe out the Infinite Empire's fleet in the star system, winning the war for the Jedi. Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon. So, Christian, Dawn of the Jedi, our review. So how did you feel about the setting and the universe in general, and how does it stand against other eras in the Legends universe?
So the first thing is that that really stood out to me is how much of a break and departure it is from traditional Star Wars, both in aesthetically and in narratively.
Yeah.
It's something that I think the authors were intentional about doing, is telling a fresh story, a fresh setting.
Yeah.
Like a kind of a hard reset on the galaxy because it's so far in the past. It's never been explored before. There's elements that are familiar and recognizable, but they did something really different with it. And it's the same creative team that did Star Wars Star Wars Legacy.
Yeah.
Which is so far in the future that they do the same kind of idea of like a break from what's familiar and make things look different.
Yeah,
right?
totally. Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of this series, to be honest. I'm a huge fan of Legacy.
Yeah.
But Dawn of the Jedi didn't really do it for me on a personal level.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything totally against it. I felt the characters and the plot were not... I think there were some cool ideas that they could have explored, but they didn't. And I didn't really care for the small personal stories in it.
Yeah.
But I also don't hate it. I don't think it's wrong. It's just not for me.
Yeah, and me too. I feel in large part like I think what I did really love about it was the universe, and I think that's what kind of kept me into the books, is because it was just like it was such a different take, yet it was still true to like the Star Wars universe, and they were able to do that in such a cool way. And it's like, so if you just go 25,000 years prior to any civilization, it would look so different than what you understand in modern society.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's what I liked, and that was kind of like a weakness I thought of like the KOTOR games, is because even though they were 4,000 years before the movie event, they were still like, you felt like you were basically could have been in the same
it could very easily have taken place
like all the
20 years before.
The technology is all pretty much the same, more or less. They do have like vibro blades, but other
vibro blades still exist even in
you just don't
they're not as used as often. Melee combat definitely has got a bigger emphasis in KOTOR,
totally. Like the ship technology, like everything just kind of feels very similar, but the KOTOR games like relied more on the plot and the characters than it did on the setting. You know, it just sort of used the Star Wars setting for
tell a cool story.
Tell a cool story. Whereas this is kind of the opposite. I felt it was more like the characters and the plot were just to explain this cool universe, right? You know, like the character.
You're more interested in the setting.
Yeah, the characters. The characters and the plot were just sort of like window dressing to hey, look, let's go back. Let's imagine a time far before
anything that you recognize.
Anything that you recognize. You know, but that's what I loved about it. I loved like what what would it look like pre-hyperspace? You know, who was the first galactic empire to span the galaxy and conquer worlds? You know, like that's cool. I love like the idea of force hounds and a living force planet of Tython. You know, there's just like, to me, those are all like pretty cool ideas that could definitely be explored more. But yeah, going on to the characters, I mean, they weren't super memorable to me.
Yeah.
I just couldn't buy into them. A lot of them felt kind of flat, maybe rather one-dimensional, and maybe there just wasn't enough time to tell the story. And I mean, it was only a 15-issue series. Yeah, it wasn't like super long.
Yeah.
So
without like novelization, they did do a novelization.
they did,
actually.
yeah. And perhaps that would be like, I haven't read the novelization, but perhaps it would be,
It'd build more on the
build more on the characters. I thought Dagon Locke was kind of a cool, interesting character. I thought he was the only one who really, in some ways, embodied the idea of balance, even though he was like locked on the planet Bogon or whatever because they thought he was going too much to the dark side. But in some ways he was just like so utilitarian. He would always use whatever would best serve him at the time. And in some ways, to me, that if you're gonna like go for balance, it's really more about using the tools at your disposal, either in the dark or the light side. But so I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool, but otherwise, yeah, the characters and the plot, it was like somewhat interesting, but it wasn't like what you said,
super compelling.
Yeah, it wasn't super memorable. Like
and I fully agree with you on everything about the characters. I will say one thing I did really enjoy is the art style and the character design. And
sure,
that ties back to the whole setting of like being very unique, very different, but still familiar. A lot of the species are familiar.
Yeah.
You have Twi'leks, you have Sith.
Yeah.
The species as good guys, which is an interesting take.
That's totally very interesting. Yeah.
And just their character designs and the art style. Personally, I like it. Art style obviously is very personal.
Yeah.
Some people like one style, some people like the other, especially in this medium of comic
Totally,
books.
yeah.
But for me, I very much appreciated the style and the artwork.
I did like I very much enjoyed the artwork, and it just brought that aesthetic to the universe that you're in, and they did a good job with that. With feeling kind of like I want to see a different era in Star Wars that doesn't feel exactly the same. But yeah, so that was like, to me, that was the cool thing. And like another interesting thing was their take on John Ostrander's take on lightsabers. It was whereas you had to use the dark side of the Force.
It's a dark side invention.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of an interesting take on lightsabers, you know.
So that's actually something that I dislike how they handled that.
Okay, and why is that?
So the first thing is there should be a distinction. What they use in this series are called Force sabers,
right,
which are actually different than light.
That
sabers.
is true. Yeah,
good
distinction to make.
Yeah, and they're functionally they seem very similar.
Yeah.
But Force sabers are more in tune with the user's abilities and are turned on and off.
Yeah.
Through the Force, they don't have a functional switch.
Yeah.
I do believe they still use lightsaber crystals. I forget what they're called off the top of my head.
Was it Kyber?
Kyber crystals, yes.
Kyber crystals.
I don't know if they use Kyber crystals or not, or if they use some other kind of technology. But they are functionally, in every way, they seem like a lightsaber. But are distinct. And the other thing that kind of gets me about that is you have almost kind of two competing origins of lightsabers.
Okay.
In some of the older kind of Marvel era, so Marvel did a little bit of work in the past, Ancient Jedi.
Oh, did they?
Earlier than this, later than Dawn of the Jedi.
Okay.
But in our timeline, it came out like I think in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
And so for their lightsaber development,
before Dark Horse had got the rights.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they did the similar thing where they had a very unique take on the galaxy, on ships, on weapons. They tried to make it look different and distinct. And in that era, the origin of the lightsaber is very different. They have like a power pack that's on your belt and it attaches to the handle. And I thought that was a very cool, unique take.
That feels very like Ghostbusters to me.
Yeah. It looks interesting.
Yeah.
And but then you had this new Force saber that functionally looks like a lightsaber.
Yeah.
It's totally detached. It's just the handle and everything. So
Yeah.
I think it was just, I think it was an unnecessary addition.
Yeah.
And
To me, it just felt like they were trying to use their imaginations on like how could they reinterpret the lightsaber.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, and this is something I didn't really care for personally.
Fair enough.
I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah. To me, I didn't really. I kind of feel neutral towards it. I thought it was kind of, that's like an interesting interpretation of it. I didn't like it was believable enough to me, but I don't know. Thinking about it even is like, why should only the dark side be able to
use? Yes.
If you're simply just using your mind to activate a mechanism.
Yeah, and I think it was tied with the use of it. Lightsabers initially, Force sabers being used as a tool of violence.
Yeah,
Not really
yeah.
something in theory that a pure peace-loving Jedi would necessarily invent.
A Jedi, but a Jedi-y.
Sure, and that's the
Like-
thing. The Jedi, they always play on the fact that they're more gray. They're more in between. They're not Jedi. They're not Sith.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's kind of lost in the explanation then of like, okay,
Yeah. The
Force
Jedi
saber-
shouldn't have some kind of like
Restriction.
hard and fast commitment to like pacifism or anything like that.
Yeah, they're more open to interpreting both sides. Right?
Yeah.
They are still engaged and open to their emotions, and that's actually an
Totally.
important part of it as well.
Yeah.
There's something else I was going to say on lightsabers, and I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, well, just in general. So even despite like kind of like their break from the tradition,
Yeah.
overall, I do respect that they seem to really try to connect Dawn of the Jedi with the overall Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Even though they were running off and doing their own thing,
Yeah.
they're respectful of everything that was already established. They're building on things that already existed.
Yeah.
They're adding backstory to characters and civilizations like the Rakata that appear
Yeah.
in KOTOR.
Yeah.
So it seems to me...
It didn't feel like they were like retconning anything from.
No, yeah, exactly. They were...
Which is a temptation, I would think.
Yeah, whenever you're given like
Yeah.
a blank pass with
Yeah.
this like open space to
Yeah,
do whatever
totally.
you want,
Yeah.
they very well could have started retconning and doing like completely going off the deep end.
Yeah.
There are some important elements that we'll talk about in a sec regarding kind of retconning and the philosophy of the Force.
Okay.
But before we dive into that, just overall, that aside and the
Yeah.
lightsabers aside,
Yeah.
overall, I think they did a good job of trying to stay true to the soul of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I guess I should say in terms
Yeah.
of like everything else. They're really trying to make it tie in. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like a whole cast of completely indistinct alien races that you have no idea what they are, who they are, or where they come from. Right? They're
Yeah.
really just trying to explain the origins of things that are familiar.
Yeah.
But leading that into the huge break, and I'm even hesitant to call it a break. It's a very strong interpretation, that even one that I agree with fundamentally, but I think people like George Lucas don't accept.
Okay.
And the big thing, it's through this series it's pushed very heavily, is the nature of the Force being a balance of the light and the dark side.
Yeah.
I personally am a strong proponent of that of that view.
Yeah.
Of that interpretation.
Yeah.
You see an evolution of it later on with Grey Jedi and characters like
Yeah.
Jolee Bindo and KOTOR.
Totally.
But this is the norm back then.
Yeah.
This is what the Jedi...
Even the Qua were pursuing balance, which preceded the Jedi.
Yeah.
Jedi. So,
exactly. And
yeah.
this kind of almost shows that like the Jedi Order that we're familiar with by the time of Episode 1 and the Republic loses. They lose sight of the balance, and they become...
It almost says
puritanical.
they're wrong.
Essentially,
Yeah.
yes. And so in that way, it is a huge retcon.
Totally, yeah.
And
that's true.
The universe as a whole, but just because I agree with it is why I'm sympathetic to it. So I don't know if that's a fair assessment.
But yeah, I don't know if it's not necessarily... Maybe it's a retcon of like George Lucas's vision for what the Force is supposed to be. But it doesn't like necessarily change, like it doesn't change the story in any way or
no,
change.
like in hard terms it doesn't, but in philosophical terms it changes a lot, right? Again, the Jedi Council is very much in the wrong.
Right.
It does also lend credence to Luke's new Jedi Order too, though, because in his new order he becomes less puritanical.
Right. Yeah.
He allows a lot more things like
marriage and
exactly, and that those expressions of positive emotions like love and caring for your friends, right?
And in the Legends, Luke Skywalker, it is almost like Luke reforms the Jedi Order. He's sort of like the John Calvin of
Yeah.
of the
Yes.
Jedi Order, right? Like
Yeah.
he breaks from the so-called Catholic Church that's been around for thousands of years, and
It has very established doctrine.
yeah, and then sort of like says no, like we don't have to do it this way, you know.
Yeah.
While still keeping true to the essential faith of the Force.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
So in that context, like it is a very complicated issue, one that like we could do a whole hour episode on this alone, which I
totally.
don't want to capitalize on, but it is one of the big aspects of this series, and it's a story element that's leaned on very heavily.
Yeah.
Like you can't go like 10 panels without
Totally.
balance being brought back
Yeah,
in
yeah,
concept.
yeah.
You know, having it have a very physical manifestation in the moons and the Tython system. So
and to be fair, there's a lot of expanded universe stuff that George Lucas hated, apparently.
yes, yeah, and George Lucas also has a horrible habit of going back and retconning his own stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Even you can see that. Even
But he still wanted to make money off it, so
right,
he's
of
like,
course. So
I'll
he just lets
license
it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even with Lucas too, right? Like he goes back and is always reworking his stuff. You can see that in all the editions of even the original trilogy. That was
Totally,
released,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you know there are also even big out of universe questions about who is the keeper of, you know, the keys of canon with Star
totally.
Wars, and those questions become even blurrier with Disney. You know, if the original creator sanctions something, is that, you know, the ultimate authority is this new interpretation. If you sell your IP, is the new creator like just as valid as the other ones? Are we free to pick and choose what we choose to believe?
Yeah.
You know,
Totally, yeah.
There are serious questions about canonicity just in general.
But even in let's call it the Disney Star Wars, they kind of go more towards like, especially in The Last Jedi, to more towards like the Jedi Order was wrong, and that it's not as black and white as you think.
I would say that was more of the last Jedi's attempt.
Yeah.
Then because that's also where it contradicts too with Abrams' interpretation. Johnston
Totally
seems to be trying to push back to this gray middle ground.
Yeah.
Which is something, despite the fact that I despise that movie, is something I can appreciate, and I thought that movie was going to be more about.
No, but what I always say is Disney just takes the good ideas from the former
and just runs it into the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it is an interesting concept, and I do personally fundamentally agree with what balance should be.
Yeah,
being something more akin to the Jedi-E's interpretation.
Yeah,
than the modern Jedi Order.
Totally.
Republic era Jedi Order, I should say.
Yeah.
And including Luke's new reformed Jedi Order.
Yeah. Because Luke isn't necessarily going for balance either. He's
still
just
very
being less puritanical, like you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then one final apology I just kind of want to make is in our previous episodes, you might recall us mentioning the origins of the Jedi and the Jedi-E. We often call it the Jedi.
Yeah.
Just based on how it's spelled. But I think, Jordan, according to your research...
it's hard to find... I couldn't find any official John Ostrander, like, confirmations of how to pronounce it. But I think from the best... And I agree with this interpretation, is there's two I's at the end.
Yeah.
And that would lead to, like, an E sounding at the end, Jedi-E. And that's kind of... And that kind of does make sense. And if it's Jedi... It literally doesn't sound different than Jedi.
I mean, it depends on the inflection.
Yeah, I know, but it's such a minor. Yeah.
Yes.
Like that would make more sense to me, that he put the two I's at the end to make that sound but
more distinct.
Yeah, more distinct from the name Jedi.
Right.
Yeah. So that's all I had to say about it. I'm not 100% sure that is the pronunciation, but I'm leaning towards, and we use that pronunciation
in this episode. But just in your mind, whichever interpretation you want to.
You know, after writing this, I'm like, it's Jedi-E now. That's kind of like, it's in my head.
It's the permanent one.
Yeah, it's the one. But I think it's Jedi-E. If anyone
knows any different,
if they dispute that or have a source,
evidence,
have like an interview with John Ostrander,
or even rules of the English language that
can
shed light on this if you're an English major or anything.
Fair enough. Yeah. But that's about it. Anything else you wanted to add, Christian?
No, sums up my thoughts. It's an all right series.
Yeah.
Definitely worth a read through for the art and the world building, but not too invested in the story itself.
Yeah, I would even say, hey, I'll recommend you read it. Like, I'll recommend you read it, support the authors or whatever. But at the very least, it's interesting to just skim through like the Wikipedia articles and just kind of get an idea.
Of the galaxy at a different time.
Yeah, exactly.
And the origins of the Jedi is very interesting as well.
Yeah. Anyways, just so everyone remembers, we are on Patreon. You can support us there if you want to see more cool content. We also are on all the socials: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Well, 3 of the socials. The 3 big ones. And then you can email us as well. Just search the Star Lords podcast, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and you'll find it on Google. We're also on YouTube.
Yeah, we're working on.
Yeah, we're trying to work on our YouTube channel. So give us a sub there. I'll reach out to us.
Let us know what you think about our content. If you have any corrections, anything you want to chat about, even Star Wars related.
Even just join the conversation. We're always open to people jumping in.
And just excited for season 2 coming soon.
Yeah, season 2 is coming soon, so don't unsubscribe to us. Stay subscribed. That our podcast will pop to the top when the new episode comes out and when season 2 starts coming out. And that's also why you should follow us on our socials so that you are up to date. Yeah. Yes. Cool. See you guys later.
You are listening to the Star Lords Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder?
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to give the show a 5-star rating and review, and give us a follow on social media. This episode was produced and edited by me, Jordan Swaim, written and directed by Christian Lutz and Sam Swaim. All original music was scored and recorded by my music project, Farewell to Shadowland.